In 1985, there was a coal merchant named Bell, who had a stable life with his wife and 5 daughters. Bell lived in Ireland, a country ruled by Catholicism, where the church controlled many aspects of life. During this time, a group of churches known as the Magdalene institutions began to take in girls who had fallen outside societal norms. These girls were forced to serve in the church and raise children born out of wedlock. The children were later offered for adoption. The church believed this was the only way for these girls to atone for their sins. The girls endured daily abuse, but
one day Bell was going about his usual work, delivering coal to every house in the city which had connections to the church. As he worked, he overheard a commotion involving a young girl. She had been wronged by a man and was being sent to the church. Bell's wife, feeling sympathy for the girl, tried to intervene, but Bell ignored her pleas. He went on with his work, but the image of the girl stayed in his mind. Later, Bell encountered a child walking alone on the road. The child told him he was the son of Matt, an alcoholic who had lost his family. Bell, moved by the child's story, gave him some money and asked if he needed help. Bell, having experienced a troubled childhood himself, felt a strong connection with the boy. That night, Bell returned home washed off the coal dust and spent time with his daughters, who were excelling in their studies. During dinner, Bell told them about the boy he had met. His daughters were concerned about the boy's background, but understood Bell's compassion. As Bell tried to sleep that night, memories of his own childhood resurfaced. He had been born out of wedlock, which led to his mother being rejected by her family. She was eventually forced to give him up to the Magdalene institutions. After some time, his mother escaped and worked at a place called Wilson's, where she cared for Bell. Although he was bullied at school because of his mother's past, Bell grew up with strong values. Back in the present, Bell and his daughters were preparing for Christmas. They were writing their letters to Santa, asking for the gifts they wanted. Bell's daughter mentioned a particular gift she had wanted when she was younger, and Bell remembered his own childhood Christmas wishes. The memories of his mother and his struggles as a child resurfaced. Later, Bell discussed his past with his wife. They talked about his estranged relationship with his mother and how it had affected him. Despite everything, Bell tried to keep his daughters safe from the pain he had experienced. He wanted to protect them from making the same mistakes his mother had made. As Christmas approached, Bell became increasingly anxious about his finances. His wife noticed this and encouraged him to try to sleep, but Bell couldn't calm his thoughts. His work had been stressful, and the weight of past memories was beginning to take its toll. Bell continued to distribute coal to the city, but when he arrived at the church, he overheard girls screaming. He had heard their cries before, but this time it was different. Bell entered the church, where he was confronted with the harsh reality of what was happening inside. One of the nuns asked him what he was doing there, and Bell, in a state of shock, could only offer a quiet response. Bell walks through the church and notices a young girl running toward him, clearly distressed. She is escaping the humiliation and abuse she endures every day. Bell, shocked by the sight, is unsure how to respond, but feels compelled to help her. As he approaches, he asks why she is there. She tells him that this will not happen again, and after their brief conversation, she runs off. That night, Bell returns home, deeply troubled by the girls he saw in the church, as they were subjected to cruel treatment. He can't stop thinking about it. He reflects on his own past, remembering the time when he was a child and his mother was suffering from illness. Wilson, a caretaker, had taken care of him back then as there was no one else. Bell struggles with his inability to help the girl he met. He sits with his wife and tells her about the girl in the church, expressing his frustration at being unable to assist her. His wife reassures him, saying that the church's rules are not meant to be violated. She reminds him that to live a peaceful life in Ireland, one must remain silent and avoid confrontation with the church, even if they feel sympathy for the girls. The scene flashes back to Bell's childhood, when he was deeply affected by his father's absence and his mother's struggles. He couldn't understand why things were the way they were. Returning to the present, Bell looks at his work with anger and frustration. And when he goes home, he lies awake all night, still thinking about the father he never knew. The absence of his father continues to haunt him. The next day, Bell delivers coal to the church and is shocked to find a girl in distress. She explains that she is pregnant with an illegitimate child, and the church plans to take her baby and put it up for adoption. Bell is stunned and unsure how to help. The girl, young and frightened, tells him she was forced into this situation and she feels trapped. She pleads for help, but Bell knows that any interference with the church's plans could have serious consequences. The church authorities, led by Mother Mary, arrive to take the girl back. Mother Mary, sensing Bell's discomfort, tries to put him at ease by talking about his family. She asks about his daughters and their schooling, which are under the control of the Catholic Church. She subtly warns him that if he doesn't stay in line, his daughters might be denied their education. This threat adds to Bell's mounting anxiety. Meanwhile, Sarah, the girl Bell met, is severely punished for her actions. Bell feels helpless as he watches her be scolded by the nuns. Sarah, in her desperation, finally reveals the truth about her situation. But even then, she's forced to lie about what happened, and Bell is left in a state of confusion and guilt. He takes the money offered by Mother Mary, although reluctantly. As he exits her office, Sarah runs up to him and gives him the address of the place where she's working, asking for help. The next day, Bell attends Mass, where Mother Mary speaks about forgiveness and mercy. The hypocrisy of her words strikes him deeply, as he knows the church's true intentions. Everyone in the congregation is forced to attend church, controlled by Mother Mary's influence. That evening, Bell returns home, and his wife tells him about the money that was given to them. Bell is torn between being grateful for the financial relief and feeling disgusted by the circumstances. The following morning, Bell visits his old friend Net, hoping to find solace, only to learn that Net's relative is ill and in the hospital. Bell spends the rest of the day troubled by his thoughts, especially about Sarah. His wife tries to comfort him, warning him to stay away from the topic of the church, as it could bring him even more problems. But Bell cannot ignore the pain of the situation, and he knows that the girl needs help. His daughter's education and the potential loss of his job cause him concern. Despite the advice he received, Bell cannot be convinced to abandon his decision. He then heads to a shop to buy a gift for his wife for Christmas. On the way, he stops by the salon to get a haircut, reflecting on the times when he was a child and not taken to the salon. He recalls how he felt as an orphan, even though he was close to the only father he knew. At the same time, he was hurt by his father's affair, which led to Bell's lonely childhood and constant bullying. Returning to the present, Bell is exhausted, reflecting on these painful memories. He walks alone through the streets, unable to stop thinking about Sarah. He is deeply troubled by her situation. When Sarah eventually comes to him, she is hesitant and fearful, unsure of how to act. She seems afraid of the potential consequences, but allows Bell to help her. As they walk, Sarah collapses, overwhelmed by all the suffering she endured at the church. Bell comforts her, assuring her that everything will be okay. They continue their journey until they reach Bell's home. Upon arriving, Sarah is scared, knowing that Bell's family might not accept her. But Bell reassures her, holding her hand and bringing her inside. His family agrees to take her in, welcoming her as one of their own. From that moment on, Sarah becomes part of the family, living with them. This story is based on real events. From 1922 to 1988, more than 56,000 girls were sent to Magdalene institutions, and many children were taken from their mothers and placed for adoption, often for significant sums of money. This practice continued for many years until the government intervened, shutting down the Magdalene institutions.